And that is a big deal. You actually create this whole report pretty much on the fly. Okay? So that's what this financial statement format is, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So let's just briefly go through this screen and the others. Obviously the report name, you can hit the drop down and find similar reports. The dates are the exact same thing as with general ledgers, trial balances. The current reporting year, in this case it's a calendar year, not a fiscal year. So just bear that in mind. But I am looking at calendar year 2011. I'm not looking at 12 because there's more activity in 2011 in my database. This number right here, for those of you that are unsure of it, it says account balances begin. This is mainly for general ledger type reports or trial balances. This tells MIP the last year that you did not close, that you did not do a hard close. Okay? This is the first day of the year that you did not do a hard close. So in my database, I can tell that my database was not closed for the year 2011 or 2012. And the way I know that is to go to Session Manager and hit Close Fiscal Year, and it says Fiscal Year to Close. If I was to hit the OK button, and I am not going to go near it, MIP will start preparing to close 2011. So that's what that means. Okay, let's go back into reports. And then I picked, for the information on transactions, I picked the month of June 2011 because I want to differentiate between a year-to-date column and a current column. Okay, I'm going to skip this for now. We'll go back to it, and then we're going to go to the content field, content tab. And again, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because my assumption is that you have seen these types of screens before. But simply put, the content tab is essentially making the columns, and it's also page breaking. Okay, so on top here in this section, it says items by page. So if I want to break out this report by fund code, or grant code, or department code, or if I want to use a group, I can do that. So if I decide to use department code up here, essentially what it's going to do, it's going to separate the data into departments, and it's going to page break for each department. So I'll just show you that real briefly. Here's Department 101 Administration. Here's the next one, Program Services, Accounting, and the list goes on. If I didn't have anything in there, it would look like this, which is the whole corporation. Okay? So that's what that does. I want to see the whole corporation, so I'm not going to put anything up here. But think of this as the page break. Down here is where you create your report by column. Okay? Because this is a financial statement, this item right here always shows up. It's automatic. Okay? You probably want to add the GL code all the time. After that, you have all of these columns that you can choose from the available columns. And again, it's the same type of thing as the general ledger or the trial balance, except that you have a whole heck of a lot more as dates are included, as well as budgets. So you have current year, you have current period budgets, all different types of budgets. You can have as many budgets as you want. I have 3 here. I have the original budget, I have a revised budget, and then I have a forecast budget that I created during the Innovate 2012 soiree that we had the other week. But you can have as many different budgets as you want. Here's year-to-date, and also you can have a ready-made variance, okay? So that's what you can do here. You could also have percentages. I would like you to play with some of these and see what happens. Like I said, it's instantaneous, okay? And I have also created a column, if it still exists, and that is this remaining forecast. Before I created this report, this column did not exist, okay? So how do I create a column? Well, in certain reports, you have this little icon here. So this is the first thing that you can do with financial statements that you cannot do with analysis reports. The other is drilling. If you hit this icon, it says Custom Column Creation, CCC. So I'm going to hit that. And here is what I've created. Okay, so you get this blank screen. You give the column a name. This is the name that's going to show on the column heading. In this case, I said remaining forecast. Okay. Then you have 2 choices as far as the column type. There's formula and date override. I chose formula, and I'll explain that in a second. Date override, and notice that when I hit the button, the column lights up. Date override essentially says that you have picked dates from X to Y, but this column is going to be for a different period. So for instance, for whatever reason, if you wanted to create a column for the month of January, let's say, and you were reporting in June, everything will be June oriented. It'll be the month of June, June year to date, whatever. Except for this column. This column will have January's figures on it. So that's how you can do it. Usually there's not a big calling for this, but you can think of it as, you know, an extra column that you can include, okay? So I'm saying that I want to base it on actual. I can choose fixed dates. So here's where I put January to January. Or I can say rolling dates relative to current reporting year begins or opening balances. Okay, so I can say that, and I can say by month, and then it says roll back 1 month ago, 2 months ago. And this will essentially give me whatever month I want on this column. Okay? Again, that's not used all the time, but at least you know that it exists. Okay, so the formula editor is the one that I did. And essentially this is just an arithmetic statement. It is saying, and I picked the available columns here, and by the way, you don't have to, any of these columns can be used. It doesn't necessarily have to be that your report shows the column. So what I did, it was a simple one. I said take total budget forecast. So that's the budget for the whole year, 12 months, for this particular budget forecast that I made up, less the current year actual, whatever that happens to be. So take this column minus this column and give me the answer. And essentially the reason why I did that is because where I used to, the last position that I had as a director of finance, it was a charter school organization, and it was important for the schools to stay on budget. And the way that we did that was we created monthly forecasts through the end of the year. So whatever month it was, we asked them to redo their budgets in general and give us an honest answer as how at this point they are going to wind up at the end of the year. And we call that the forecast. So I created that in MIP, and then what I want to show in my case, the principals, was how much they had left to spend according to their last forecast. Okay? So that's a quick tutorial on creating your own columns. Now, one would ask, why would I need to create my own column if there's so many columns already in MIP? And, 9 out of 10 times, somebody will come up to me and say, how come you don't have a column that does this? Well, now you do. You can create it. So this is my column. It looks like everything else, and essentially what it's taking is this number less this number. And it's telling me that for state grants revenue, I have to make up $88,000 by the end of the year. Okay? So that's that. All right. So I picked my columns. Quick tutorial on how to do that. You just highlight a column, hit the arrow. If you hit this arrow, all of the columns will come over, so don't do that. And essentially, this reads left to right. So this would be the first column, this is the first, second, third, all the way through. You can sort by any of these columns. If anything that is not grayed out, you can change. Okay, so you can't change show total here, but you can change if you want to sort by a certain column. In this type of report, you probably wouldn't do that. You can change the width of the column, so when it gets reduced to a piece of paper, it will fit on that piece of paper and also will encompass all of the numbers. So if you have a 17-digit number, you're a huge corporation and you'll need to make this wider. The wrap, if you check that, that's simply the header of the column instead of it being truncated, and you'll see 3 dots at the end for the truncation. You can wrap it and it'll go on to the next line. And over here, you can name columns as long as they're in white, not gray. You can change the column names. It's not going to change your segment, because in this case, the segment for GL is called GL code, but I can say general ledger code. I can just say account. You just type it right in, and it'll change for this, this report and this report only. By the way, the same thing with creating a column. That column will only exist on this report only, okay? So if you want to use that column in all of your different reports, you probably, well, you may want to think twice about it, but you'll have to create it for every type of report that you have. That lets you do that, okay? All right, let's move on. Filter. Filter is kind of self-explanatory. These are the filters that you can use. So you can say if you have something in your general ledger that, let's say you don't want to include Department 999, you can say Department is not equal to, and I'm saying blank, okay? But I can change that to 999 or whatever. And you can use any of these arithmetic equations. Equals to, less than, greater than, in range, which is between, which means in range from here to there. Anything outside of a range, a wild card. So you can say, give me all departments that start with A. So you would say like, and then you would say, in this case, probably 2%, okay? And then if I hit this button, it's only going to give me departments that start with the number 2. So that's how you can use the filter. It's just like general ledger codes. We're going to skip groups for now. If we have time, we'll go back to them. And then options. The only thing that I want to talk about now is half of this tab, and then we'll talk about the other half when we talk about formats. If you're going to compare the budget, you have to go to options and put in the dates of the budget that you want to compare the actuals to. These dates over here do not change these dates over here. It's a manual entry. You have to make sure that you do that. It's very important, especially if you use the same report every month. You don't change it, but at the end of the year, the first month of the next year, you will know to change this stuff. You have to remember to change the budget, or else it's going to compare to last year's budget. Okay? This section, I would not use equity section. It makes no sense at this point. You can use unposted transactions in this report. Just be careful because it will include unposted transactions. And if you only want to do it one time, if you save this report and you have unposted transactions, it's going to give you unposted transactions next month. So you just have to realize that you've clicked it. Okay? I would always include year-end adjustments. And for those of you that have encumbrances, purchase orders and or encumbrances, you can check this and it will include encumbrances as expenditures. So it'll add encumbrances plus actual incurred expenses. It'll add those together and compare those two to the budget. For those of you that don't have encumbrances and POs, that made no sense to you, so don't worry about it. Don't use it. Miscellaneous, you can suppress lines with all zeros. So if you have a row that has all zeros in all the columns that you pick, you may or may not want to see that row, so you can just suppress it. And rounding is not a big deal. It's either none, which means that you're going to include cents, and then whole dollars. Okay? All right. Layout is the pretty quotient. You can change your fonts. I always say during a webinar that I have never heard of the font called Tahoma until I started working with MIP, which was years ago, but to this day I never see this used except in MIP, and after a while I got too lazy to change it to Arial or Times Roman or whatever, but you can have at it, and essentially you can change the organization name, font, the report titles, the report date. You can play with this, okay? I'm not going to do that now, but you can play with it and see what your report looks like. Down here is the page setup. You usually leave it as is, but you can change the margins. This has 0.75. If I really wanted to squeeze in another column, I can make this 0.5. It won't go much lower than 0.5, maybe 0.3. And you can change it, the orientation to portrait or landscape. But I would leave the default when you start creating a report. Okay? In a nutshell, I explained everything there is to be known about the coordination of financial statements, with the exception of this column. And that's what we're going to talk about now. This column is called the financial statement format. So what you do is when you create a financial statement of any kind, you have to create two separate formats in a way. You have to create the report itself, which is this header, and the content, and the filter, and the groups, if any, and any of the options, and the layout. And then you also have to create a format. Now, if you don't want to create your own format, you can always use default. So here is the report again using the format that I've created. And just look on the left side here. And here is the default. Let's make it a little more. Here's the default. Doesn't look that different, but I'm going to show you how I created mine anyway. Okay? I'm going to show you that statement level as well in a little bit. So I'm going to change this back to mine. And then what I'm going to do is, if you're at a report and you have a format already in there, if you want to use that format, you can go to this little icon and it's going to go to the financial statement format screen. And that's it. Okay? Or if you want, oh, by the way, if you do that again, you can pick any formats that have been created already for revenue and expenditure reports. Another way of doing it is to go right here in the report manager. It says financial statement formats. You type in the type of report you're going to do, which is statement of revenues and expenditures, and you can get to the format that way. Okay? But if you're at a report and you have a format there already, you can hit this little icon and it'll come right to the format. Okay? So, keeping in mind, see, I may just keep this tab open. Keeping in mind that we're creating this column here from scratch. Okay? We're going to follow the report and the format that I've created. Okay, so the first thing you do is you create your statement ID. You enter in the statement type. You give it a name, and you can leave the statement title as is if you want. There, again, this is just the format. It's not the report itself. The next tab is the Create Outline tab. This essentially is created, and this is what creates that first column. Okay? Grants, federal, state. I will show you, different level. Grants, federal, state. Okay. Programs, education, training. Programs, education, and training. This is in a different hierarchy. So I'm going to go through this and I'll show you. Okay. All right. So there's a few different levels that you have to be concerned about. The first level, as you see, all the others are indented. If you look at this one, and this one, this is the first level. Okay, so obviously this is an income statement type of report. So I want revenues and expenses. Those are my two headers. The third one, change in net assets, is going to be a calculated item. So we'll visit that in a moment. But I'm going to open up revenues just to keep this not so busy. Okay? And what I did then is I decided that I wanted a row called revenues, and to see what how this was made up, you can hit this little ABC icon, and this is done after the fact, after you actually create it. If you hit that, you'll see that the section title is called Revenues. Where it says Specify Section Type, I'm saying Other, and Other means everything but a total line. Okay, so this this line does not total anything. It's just a header. I can position on the page as a left justify or center. That's really just for prettiness. If it's a revenue section, I obviously hit revenue. And at the end, when I'm done listing all the revenues, I just want a single underline. Okay? So that's how that's done. And let me show you, I'm just going to make believe I'm creating a new one. Okay, so I'm going to hit this plus and arrow sign. The arrow is facing straight down. That means that whatever I'm going to create is going to be lined up with revenues, expenses, and changes in net assets. If I had my cursor on here, under grants, if I hit this, it would line up under grants, program, and other. And if I go back to revenues and I hit this skewed arrow, what it's going to do is it's going to add something to the right and down of revenues. And that's what I did with grants. So let me just show you just how I did that, but then I'm going to delete the example. Okay, so I'm going to add something that is right under revenues in the same area. So I'm going to just call this test. And I'm going to say that this is not a total, so I'm going to leave it as other. I'm going to say left justify. I'm going to say that this is an expense instead of a revenue. And I'm going to say single underline. So there it is. Okay? Now if I wanted to move this up, I can move it up. Okay? But I don't want to do that. So that's how you create this type of section and this indentation. Okay? Under test, let's say I want to add something else. Okay? So what I did was I took this skewed or diagonal arrow, I put my cursor on test, and it now is a sublink of test. And I can name that test 2 or whatever. So instead of test 2, just think of test and test 2, think of revenues and grants. Okay? And that's essentially it. If you want to maneuver these up and down, you can do that, okay, by hitting these arrows. And what I'm doing there is creating yet another line for this report. Now, in this column, this row, I'm sorry, you'll see the difference between the two of these types of entries. Under test, as well as under revenues, it says create outline, but it doesn't highlight the next tabs. So we're creating an outline right now, but we're not assigning accounts yet. I can't assign accounts because there is a hierarchy under this test. Okay, there's a subset of this test. And grants is under revenues, and it'll be part of the revenue subtotal. But if I highlight test 2 or grants, sorry, or federal, test 2 or federal, you'll see assign accounts. That's the next step. Okay? If you go to change in net assets and you hit this ABC to see how I created it, you'll see change in net assets or net income. Instead of other here, I created it as a total. I said left justify. I made this a revenue. I only use revenue and expense. Changes in fund balance and fund balance. You can experiment with it, but it usually kind of makes the report way too messy. I would strongly say not to use them, but it's your prerogative. But with net income, you assume that you're going to have income instead of a loss or an increase in net assets, and you want the increase to be a positive number. So that would be a revenue. If it's a negative, if expenses are over revenues, it's going to be a negative number. Okay, so that's something that you have to watch. If you want the part of the report to be expenses, you need to highlight expenses, or else all your expenses are going to show up as negative numbers. If it's a revenue, you want to highlight revenue because revenues are normally credits, right? But you don't want to show it as a credit. You want to show it as a positive number. So that's where these things play in, okay? All right. So I'm going to get rid of this, and then I'm just going to show you how I created what I created here. So again, I'm going to hide expenses so it's not that busy. So under revenues, I have grants, okay? And under grants, I have federal and state. So because there is something under grants, just like there is something under revenues, the assign accounts tab does not highlight. But here it does under federal. So what it's saying is I'm at the last level that I've created. So now it's asking me what GL accounts do I want to show under here. This is like account grouping, okay? For this type of format, I'm going to tell MIP what GL accounts are going to be under what I call federal. So the way to do that is to highlight where you want what you want and then hit the assign accounts, and it's going to give you your whole chart of accounts, soup to nuts, including assets and liabilities. And let me show you a little trick here. Under here, I'm going to add a section, and I'm going to call it plug. Okay? Doesn't matter what it looks like because I'm going to get rid of it at the end of the day. So I'm going to just put it under here for now, and I'm going to go into assign accounts, and I'm going to assign all the assets and liabilities. In this case, it's whatever it's what's left because I have accounted for all the income and expenses. So I'm going to just move this over, and excuse me. What I did was I took the assets and liabilities and net assets out of play, so I don't have to keep going down and trying to find what I really want to find, okay? So you'll understand that in a second. So I'm going to go to federal, I'm going to go to assign accounts, and what you need to do is picture that this was here as well as all the other income and expense accounts, available items, okay? And what I did was I said, okay, let me see what GL codes I want under federal. And this obviously is an art, okay? If you're not a manager, you may want to sit with your manager and decide which account should go where, or even how to create the format, okay? So I just move that over, and then I go down to state, and I find state, and I just move that over. There's only one of each. And that's it with revenues, okay? So with grants, I'm going to I'm not going to show you each one, but with program, it's the same thing. No assign accounts here, but under education, I say assign accounts, and I picked these two. And again, especially when you're starting from the top, you're going to see all of your chart of accounts here, and you're going to pick and choose from the list. I got rid of the assets and liabilities by putting it into this little, plug for now. And like I said, I used up all the revenue and expenses when I created this, okay? When I created this format. So picture this area populated and I'm picking and choosing the items that I want. And the same thing with training and fees. I picked the items that I wanted. And now I have other, which is interest and miscellaneous. And that's the end of revenues, because the next line is expenses. But more importantly, I mean, I can call this Joe if I wanted to, but expenses are lined up with revenues. So that's the end of this section right here. Now, what's going to happen is, if you remember, from the report. That there is a total revenues line, and you see it is it has one line under it. Now, nowhere in this format do I have a subtotal for revenues. Okay, it's understood. When you create a new section, it knows that that's the end of this section, so it subtotals it. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to add a revenues total like this down here. This is a total. You don't have to do that. Okay? All right. Now with expenses, personnel, I picked salaries, and I added all the items that I thought were salaries. Okay? And down here in operating, well, let's go down to admin. I picked general. Here are my general admin accounts, and just one more, depreciation. I picked depreciation. Okay? So that part of it is not too difficult. Okay? You just essentially create your outline by using these icons here. You have to decide your hierarchy, and then you have to decide what accounts you want in each of these last items as far as your hierarchy is concerned. Okay? The one thing that you definitely want to do is, at the end of the day, the only thing that should be here is assets, liabilities, and net assets. Most people, their revenue starts with a 4, and their expenses start with 5, 6, 7 through 9. You don't want to see any 4s through 9s here, or else you're not going to balance to your trial balance or your income statement. Okay? All right, so now that I'm happy and everything has disappeared, I want to get rid of this plug because I don't want it in my report. I just used it again for eyeball purpose. I just wanted all the assets and liabilities out of my vision. So I'm just going to say X, which deletes it. And if you go back into assign accounts, you'll see all the assets and liabilities and net assets. Okay? So that's how that works. Always remembering to save every once in a while. Go back in. And the last thing I want to show you is this change in net assets. So you have the revenues, you have the expenses. So now I want to see the bottom line. So what's going to happen is it's going to give me a subtotal of revenues automatically. It's going to give me a subtotal of expenses automatically. And I want to add them all up. So essentially what I did here is I created this tab, and when I did that, as I showed you before, I didn't hit other, I hit total. Okay? And instead of a single underline, I want a double underline. And I said that I want this as a revenue because my assumption is that income over expenses is going to be the positive number or a positive number. Okay? But you notice that when I'm in, let's say, Admin General, the Assign Accounts button or tab lights up. In Change in Net Assets, because I picked Total instead of Other, the Create tab, Total lights up. And essentially what happens is it's going to list all the subtotals. You pick the subtotals that you want to add together. So it's going to add the credits from the revenues, even though it looks like it's positive numbers, they are credits, and it's going to add the expenses, and that's it. That's all you need to do. And it's going to look like this. Okay, double line. Here's the expenses, total expenses. Here's the total revenues, and that's that. Okay? Now we're going to build on this. Okay? So that's the minimal amount that you want to do. Well, the minimal amount would be to just have these subs here and assign accounts. The next step is to have a summation statement. Then after that, there's something else that you can do, and I'm going to explain half of it now, and then half of it when we go back to the report. Keep in mind again that we're not on the report right now. We're on the format. Okay? So I'm going to go into Federal, and I'm going to look at assigned accounts again. And I know that there's one assigned account. And I'm going to look up here, and I'm going to see where it says print balance 4. And it defaults to GL account. Okay? But you have this other item here, segment selected at report time. The other thing that I haven't mentioned is if you check, and this is also a default, if you check print detail, if you use a certain level, which I'll show you again, it will show you this the amount in this particular account. Okay? So you want to do that for all of them because you may want to drill down all the way to the account code, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So I did that. I said I just want the GL account for all the revenue accounts. Okay? Now hold that thought. I'll explain it a little more in a moment. But look what I did with expenses, and trust me, I did this with all the expenses. Okay? I'm just picking salaries. I'm going into assign accounts, and you see that I changed this. I instead of saying GL account, I'm saying segment selected at report time. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm giving myself an alternative to reporting. Okay? If you pick GL account, it's only going to show the amounts by GL account. It's going to be in this order, but it's only going to show in the columns the amount of the GL account. Okay? With expenses, though, I want the wherewithal, I want the alternative to show it in a different order. And I can show it in any other segment order that I've created. Again, I'll show that to you in a moment. Okay? So I did that with all expenses. This is optional, but you'll see why in a second. Okay. That's the format. And like I said, when I created this report in 15-20 minutes, I included the format. It is that easy, and you can do it that quickly fairly soon. Okay. So now we're back at the report. Okay? I'm making sure that the right format statement, financial statement format is used in this report. So I do that by just calling it up. Okay? I make sure that my dates are correct. I go into content, and I make sure that my columns are correct. Filter, I make sure that my filtering is correct. Groups, I said we'll talk about if we have some time, but that would probably be for another webinar. Options, okay, this is the screen that I only explained 50% of. Now I'm going to explain the rest. Okay, so what I explained was here down. Total budget's down. Now I'm going to explain financial statement. This has to do with the formats. Okay? Here is the reason for my choosing using the other segments in the format. Let's go back there 1 second. And this is what I'm talking about. Segment selected at report time. Okay. So this is report time. I'm at the report, and I have the wherewithal to change the report look. I'll show you that in a second. but it says segment to substitute for GL segment. Very poor English, even for somebody like me who talks very street language-y. Essentially what that means is, what segment do you want to use other than general ledger, other than the GL codes? That's what it means. So what segment do you want to use to report other than GL codes? So the answer here is none. I want to use GL codes. So this is what you get. Okay? Now, revenues are going to stay as is. Expenses, these are GL codes, okay? Or groups of GL codes. Salaries, overtime expense, contract services, direct transportation, dues. I mean, you can tell, especially down here, it says depreciation. There is a code called depreciation expense. Up here in salaries, there are several codes that I picked, but this answer is strictly the general ledger codes. Okay? Now, just watch expenses when I change this. I'm going to change it to program. I'm going to run it again. Okay. As I said, the revenues are the same because I didn't change those. But look at the expenses. These are programs. This is the program segment of this database. So you see healthcare, social services, food service. So what it did was it took all of the GL codes under this personnel section and added them together by program. Okay? Non-program related, pooled program. These are programs. Same thing down here. Took all of the expenses under operating and entered them in. And this is done with the budget too. The kicker is, did you budget by program? If you didn't, then this report's not going to do it for you. Okay? Because there are certain segments that you budget for, as you know. Okay? Same thing with admin. Let me pick another one. How about department? No, I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Yep. Nope. Department. No, that's group. I'm sorry. I'm in group. I don't want group. Here we go. Department. Okay. So this stuff probably looks familiar. Here's the administrative department, program services, accounting, the executive director. So this is by department. The reason why I'm showing you this is, let's go back to program. This report set up as is actually creating a similar but not exact statement of functional expenses, if you think about it. Okay? Statement of functional expenses is usually by major programs, you know, what your company does for a living, including fundraising and administration. So you could conceivably start using this report as a functional expense report, if you think about it. Okay? You have administration by these different programs. So you can lump administration into one. You have operating in different programs, same thing with personnel. So that may be something that your bosses may be interested in, but I'm just giving you the choice there. And the way that you can pick that choice is on your format, pick segment decided at time of report. Okay? So that's that. Statement level. And if you remember, during when we were creating the format, there was a hierarchy, levels. Okay? So this report right now is in statement level 2. So you have revenues, you have a grants header, you have the individual grant accounts, then you have total grants. You have program. You have the individual accounts that make up total program revenue, and then a total. Okay? If you pick level 1, you have all the levels, all the last levels together. There's no subtotaling by grant. So you have grant, other, fees, and the list goes on. Okay? Same thing with expenses. So this is a more detailed report that you can give to your managers, as well as running this report. He or she can think it's 2 reports, and you're just absolutely a genius. Okay? I don't think there's a third level, but let's try it. Yeah, in this case, it's kind of silly because there are certain columns that only, certain rows that only have 1 GL code. But you see, federal grants, total federal, state grants. Down here, you have miscellaneous, the different accounts, total miscellaneous. Then it's total other. Other is made up of interest and miscellaneous. Personnel is made up of salaries and benefits. So this report may do something for you. Okay, so it's breaking it down even finer. So that's the levels. Okay? So I've explained the whole thing about this options tab. Usually the options tab, especially in transactions or analysis, is not as important as with financial statements. Okay? So that is how you create a financial statement. Again, if you want to play with a statement of activities or whatever, you can. It's the same thing. And speaking of statement of activities, let's look at this. 117, many of you have this, this segment. It's restrictions. So let's try that. Oh, that didn't work too well, did it? Let's see. Now, you know, in this report, you probably wouldn't want this. We'll look at the comparing report. You see, it says unrestricted, unrestricted. That's not going to make too much news. But I'm going to show you report by restrictions in a moment. Okay? So that's the basic statement of revenue and expenses. Let's look at the other 2. Now, I got the original report in this area. So that's financial statements, reports, statement of revenues and expenditures. Under it is statement of revenues and expenditures by period. It is a totally different report per se, but watch and see how quickly you can create this report. Okay? So here, let's see. Yeah, this is mine. I created one already. Okay? I'm using the same financial statement format, and you probably want to do that for similar reports because you want to make sure that people that when they see the line salaries, you want to make sure that they know what is in that line. And if you use a different format, you may not use, let's say, bonus expense. You may just use salaries. In another report, you may use bonus expense and salaries and overtime like I did. So for similar reports, you want to use the same format, or at least a very similar format. Okay? So this is advanced reports by period. Now this is a little different because, number 1, you can create a column because this icon is here, but you notice that the drill down is not. Okay? So you can't drill down on this one. I'm picking the first 6 months, so it's not a ridiculously long report. And I'm going into content, and I'm not really changing anything, okay, compared to the other report. I may not have used the forecast. I'm comparing the actual to the revised budget, because for some reason we have a revised budget that has more meat in it than the original budget. And you essentially pick and choose, okay? When you pick and choose, you'll notice that there is a title section and an account code section. And it means what it says. Up here is the title, okay, and I just want the GL code to show in the title. The rest of it will get the information from the format that I chose. And then in period amount, I have actual and revised. And total, I have actual and revised. And account code, I have GL code. So you'll see what that looks like in a second. Okay? Filter, I'm not filtering anything. Options, I have the wherewithal to pick the segment substitute again. And down here in reporting period, I can report either monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Okay? Same thing with includes down here. You want the year-end adjustments. I'm suppressing to zeros and I'm rounding. So let's take a look at this. Okay, here we are. Same format. So somebody's going to think, wow, look how quickly you created this report. Well, you created the format before, so it's no biggie. But you don't have to tell everybody that it's no biggie. I mean, you know, when is raise time coming? So this is by period, okay? So month of January, month of February, March, April, May, June, and total, okay? I just put the GL codes here for just edification. You can put it wherever you want. You can probably put them here, which makes more sense. In fact, why don't we do that? Let us move the GL codes up. Grab the whole thing and move it up right under title GL. Let's run it again. And here are the GL codes. You may or may not want to include them, but for our case, we can do it. Now, the only danger with this is depending on your level. For instance, for other revenues, this is only one of several GL codes, okay? It's going to take either I don't remember, it's either going to take the first one or the last one. So I'm going to get rid of GL code. I don't want it. Okay. Now, one problem with MIP is if you included, let's say, GL code, the account code and the title, and you don't want the account code, it's going to take the title away as well. So it's kind of like you got to do it twice. And let's see. Oh, I'm having trouble doing it. Having trouble getting rid of the account code and keeping the title code. There we go. Okay. Takes a little getting used to. So here it is. No more GL codes. Okay? So it's comparing actual to budgeted revision. And you can include another column called variance if you want. We can do that right now. Let's see. Got to find it first. And under period amount, we have variance revised. Okay. And it's adding to the total as well as the period. Okay. Let's run it again. And there it is. So you don't have to count on your fingers and toes. Okay. And it goes all the way through. And it includes the total. So that's a pretty neat report. Okay. So that's the revenue and expenditure report by period. And again, you can play with this. Here it is by quarter. So you see, I'm really creating all new reports by just hitting a couple of buttons. Here's the quarter. Now, I'm sure managers will want to know this information. So just tell them, yeah, I can do a report by quarter. Give me a couple of days, and you'll be done in 10 seconds. Okay, so that's by period. Now, let me show you an even neater report. And that is the combining statement of revenues and expenditures. It's right here. And by the way, obviously you can save your reports to your favorites instead of trying to find them all the time. And here it is. So webinar advanced reports combining. And obviously you want to give your reports a better name than that. Okay? Same format. See that? Okay, under content. Here's the major difference with this report. First of all, you can't drill down on this report. And this report, you can't do two things. You can't drill down and you can't create a new column or create your own column. So don't go crazy looking for it. It doesn't exist. Okay. So what I said previously in this section of the Contents tab is that the first section is for page breaks, with the exception of this report. This report, you can page break and you can use a combining column. So what is a combining column? Okay, so let's start from scratch. You have to have a combining column in this report in order for it to work. So the best way to explain it is to just do it. I'm going to pick program code, and I'm going to say that it is a column, it's not a page break, okay? So there's the difference. With the other reports, when you call up program code, it's going to be only a page break. Here you have the choice of a column or a page break. So here's what a column for program code looks like. Okay. Same format. GL codes are here. Probably can get rid of them if I really wanted to. These columns are my programs. This is my program section. So it has the format that I've created and the programs that I have, and it separated them, but kept them on the same report. So each column is a different program. Now, I think that this report is something that most people could use. This, again, is a functional expense report if you think about it. You could create a functional expense report from a revenue and expenditures report by simply not including revenues, okay, and creating a format called functional expenses, and you group the codes like I did, but slightly different. You mimic what your functional expense report looks like. So if you have salaries and benefits, you would include benefits, and the list goes on. There's usually telephone, there's miscellaneous, there's all sorts of stuff in a statement of functional expense. And you just mimic that report. And that way, for some of you, I know that your auditors either do the statement of functional reports or they have you on the lam and they make you do it, and they nitpick every item because they want to know from your Excel spreadsheet, how did you get this information? Well, now you have the wherewithal to not only run a report, but also show them exactly how it's broken down by using the different levels. Okay? So this is by program, and of course there's a total. Okay? So let's look at some other stuff. Let's get rid of program, and let's say department. Now department, this originally was page break, but I want it by column. So here's the departments: admin, program, accounting. This is not easy to do with an FRX or a crystal, okay? I just hit a button and it worked. I don't know if this is going to do anything, probably not, because it looks like everything is unrestricted. But let's just say by restriction. Okay, well, I'm wrong. There is stuff in there. Here's a statement of activities. I mean, there is a statement of activities report, but if you don't want to bother with it, you certainly can use this with the same format. Essentially what you would see in temporarily restricted, if this was done accounting correctly, which it looks like it has been, you won't see expenses in any of the restrictions, but you'll see revenue, and then you'll see a release from restrictions, probably right here. You can put it in there. And tell me that this isn't a statement of activities. The only thing that's missing is the flow of net assets, which you can add. Okay. Now you can go even further with this. You can go crazy if you want. You can say, I want everything by, I want columns by program, but I want to see it by department. So it's going to page break for every department, but it's going to show the same columns. Let's run that. So here's admin, and here's all the programs. Okay. Next page, program services, and here's all the programs. So you get the gist of what you can do. For some of you, some of these reports will be irrelevant. For others, it'll be a godsend. Okay, so it really is a matter of playing and determining what you, your bosses, and your external users need. This report is perfect for grants. I had a lot of grants to report to, and I use this report instead of grants management. So it's there for you to use, and I hope it does help you. We have a few minutes. If you would like to ask me any questions, I am now ready to receive. Just raise your hand, and I will unmute you. Anybody? Okay, I either answered all your questions before you created them. Oh, here's one. Okay. All right, so Paulette, let's see if we can hear you. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Are you there? Hello? I'm sorry I can't hear you. Can you type in your question? Sorry about that. That does happen sometimes where I can't hear you guys, but hopefully you can hear me, even though I unmuted her. Anybody else have questions? And again, if I see questions and I haven't answered them, I will email you the answers. Sorry, Paulette. If you can type in your question, I will answer it offline. Anybody else? Okay, well, I appreciate you spending part of your afternoon with me. If you have further questions on reports, or if you want to attend other webinars, please contact the appropriate phone number on our website. And I enjoyed the time that we spent, and hope to hear from you next time. I see that there's a couple of questions. I'm not going to keep the rest of you on the line. I will answer them when I get the feedback from the webinar in GoToMeeting. Okay? We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.